Sometimes we have a reading with a psychic or medium that can make us feel uncomfortable because of something they say or the way they say something. And what about the relationship with the psychic or medium outside of the reading? In this episode, we're going to talk about 3 reasons for you to set boundaries with a psychic medium or with any psychic. We'll talk about it here on Third Eye Sight. My name is Juan Francisco, and I'm a psychic medium and tarot card reader. I've always been curious about the supernatural, the paranormal, and psychic abilities, and I'm here to share my stories and interview folks who want to share their own stories with us. Let's get to it. Hey everybody, I have not been on the most consistent podcasting schedule, and I apologize for that. And I've just been trying to juggle a lot of things happening recently. Many of you know, based on Instagram and Facebook, that I have been in a theater production, and that just ended 3 weeks ago. I think almost 3 weeks ago. And then I went to Europe for my best friend's birthday, and that happened 2 weeks ago. And then I came back, and I'm doing this huge event at work that's happening within the next week. And I'm the one leading all the logistics, and it's been very busy. And I feel really bad that I haven't been consistent with my podcasting schedule, but I'm hoping this will change moving forward. And so, this is the podcast episode that I probably wanted to originally post and put up and publish. Post, put up, publish. PPNP. My English major brain is like, alliteration. Anyways, I digress. I wanted to post this originally probably 3 weeks ago. And here I am posting it now, and I'm actually really excited to talk about it because I think it's a very, very important topic. So let's get into it. Setting boundaries with your medium and or psychic. There are 3 things I want to share in this episode. 3 scenarios that are possible when it comes, or 3 scenarios that could possibly make a client make you feel uncomfortable. And that requires some boundary setting and awareness for you as a client. And I do want to say, I mentioned this in the intro to this podcast episode, but I do want to say there will be some examples I will share from when I've been in a reading or at an event with a medium. Some examples I'll share that may disturb you, that may feel uncomfortable to hear, and some of them have to do, I will relate some of them to instances of abuse, instances of, I think, insensitivity, and how we talk about the topic of death. So I just want to put that warning out there a second time because I really want to be mindful of how this all may make someone feel. Because as a psychic medium, I have a responsibility to be a channel for the other side, and I also have a responsibility to communicate what the other side is telling my client in a way that doesn't upset them, in a way that doesn't hold them back in a healing journey. Whether that healing journey is related directly to the passing of the loved one that we are talking to, or it relates to some trauma in their life. I am not here to hold someone back from that healing journey or to cause some obstacle to now come in the way of their healing journey. So with that, let's get into it. Number 1 thing that requires setting a boundary, not that it's at the top of the list, the top number 1 thing, is just the first thing I'm going to talk about, and that is forcing forgiveness. Many of you who listen to the podcast have heard me talk about this before. I was once in a mediumship circle where this gentleman wanted to give a reading to this young woman, and he told her that a father figure was stepping through. And it sounded to her like, I think it was her stepfather. Obviously, I'm not going to share any names in this whole episode just to protect people's privacy. So I'll just refer to folks by the genders I understood them to use. And so she told this fellow psychic medium in the circle, Well, he and I didn't get along. I didn't really like him. I didn't really get along with him. And then, well, she had said that because the psychic medium had initially told her, he wants to say he loves you. He really loves you. And then she said, well, we didn't get along. I didn't get along with him. And he said something. I know he said, well, he loves you. And I believe, if my memory is correct, he said something like, and he wants you to open up your love for him too. He wants you to love him too. I may have that second part wrong, but I know for sure, this happened a while ago, for sure he had told her a second time, well, he loves you and he wants you to know that. And when I heard this interaction happening live in front of me, I felt so uncomfortable, because number one, we don't know the reason that she didn't get along with her stepfather. And that reason could have something to do with trauma. Even if it has nothing to do with a really traumatic event that happened in her life. If she didn't like him just because she didn't like him, she has a right to feel that way. And we, the psychic mediums in the circle, do not know her well enough to tell her how to feel about someone who's passed in terms of how to appreciate that person or not appreciate that person. And I have seen this happen here and there. I've heard stories of things like this happening in readings of people. Most of the time, I hear about these stories when they happen in group settings, and which makes sense because one-on-one readings, only two people know that what happens in a reading when it's one-on-one. The client may share something out with their friends and family, and then word gets around that the psychic medium talks like this and says things like this. Maybe the psychic medium talks about this reading with people, and really they shouldn't. And if they will talk about that reading, that one-on-one reading, they should keep things totally high level, vague, no specifics. But really, we should not be sharing very personal information out in public with people from a one-on-one reading. So if a group setting, it's easier for word to get around because multiple people are hearing this reading happening in this group setting, whether it's on Zoom in my circle or it's in person at an event somewhere. And so I've heard things like this before. And I think there is this philosophy out there with some psychic mediums that we should honor and love everyone who's passed because maybe, I'm going to make this part up, maybe it will bring us bad karma if we hold resentment or a grudge. I'm the first to say that holding a grudge and resentment is not healthy for us. However, who am I to tell somebody who encountered a lot of trauma in their family to say, oh, but you should love your parents? Well, but I went through this horrible thing with my mother. She was a horrible person to me. Oh, but you should love her though. Be like, it's not good for you to not love her. Who am I to tell somebody that? That's not my place to say that. And I know that my personal belief system regarding how spirit works, it influences my readings. But I'm comfortable with that because I feel like what I believe in today, because my beliefs may change, I grow, I learn new things. My beliefs today tell me that spirit understands how we feel about people who've hurt us, how we feel about situations that have hurt us. And spirit does not demand us to forgive them, does not demand us to love them 100%, to love them 50%. They don't demand anything from us. I believe that when we pass, we are in need of nothing because we are love. We have everything we need. And this brings me to the fact that as human beings, because we have a soul in this human body, we have everything we need within us. We don't need to seek validation from people. We don't need to get something from people to be happy. I think we need community with people, but that looks different to different people, right? But we really are in need of nothing to know that we are love. We are born with this love energy. So when we pass, we feel that to just a heightened state because we are just so equal with that love. So why would we need someone back on earth to forgive us if we have everything we need on the other side? Why do we need someone back on earth to love us if we have everything we need? And I've heard the belief that this soul will not move on until you forgive them. I feel that is such a tricky, potentially dangerous thing. I just hit my microphone as I was saying something very impassioned. Pardon me. That could be a very dangerous thing to tell a client, because then it places the burden on you, the client. It places the responsibility on you, the client, for the state of somebody's soul. That doesn't sit well with me. Again, this is what I believe. I believe this today. My beliefs may change, but it doesn't sit well with me. I have met people, I have read books about people, I have watched shows about people who have gone through the most horrific circumstances with abusers. Are you telling me that I or the next person would be responsible for the state of someone's soul, even though that person in their physical life abused me? I don't think the onus is on you, the client. And I also believe that we all go to the same place. So I don't believe in hell. I do believe that we as souls have choices. Let's say I'm someone who was extremely materialistic in my physical life, and I felt validated by the physical things around me, the money I had. When I pass, I may decide to stick around for a little bit because, and when I say stick around, this is where it gets tricky for me, because sometimes I don't know what I believe because I don't know everything. I don't know everything. Our loved ones can come back to visit us. That doesn't mean they're sticking around, that they're stuck. I'm saying I believe that we as souls can decide to make ourselves stuck. So I can decide to, because my identity was so based as a human being in my things and my physical materialistic things, I may be afraid to move into the light, to move on. Now, while I am in this gray area, let's say, of not being in the light, not being a living person, physical living person, I don't call that gray area hell. I don't really call it limbo. I just kind of think it's just an in-between. And I think that there is space there to pray for those souls to move on to the light. I do believe that's possible, but I don't believe it's a punishment. So I don't see an afterlife phase of a gray area, like in between heaven and earth. I don't see it as that soul being punished. I see it as that soul having made this decision to stick around for whatever reason, because maybe they don't feel ready to move on, or they don't feel like they have an identity of love, that they don't have an identity that goes beyond the materialistic things on this planet. The riches they had, the house they had. Maybe they left a loved one behind in the physical world that they were very attached to and they want to stick around. But they haven't learned yet that they can come and visit while also being in the light. This would be a whole other episode, I think. But what I really want to get back to is the burden is not on you to save the state of somebody's soul. Pray for their soul. That's fine. But the soul is on its own journey. Our souls are continuously evolving if we decide to evolve. It's a decision. Each of us have that decision to make as a soul in a human body and in the afterlife. And even the soul of somebody who was a terrible person, that soul, I believe, is learning from their mistakes in the afterlife, not being punished. And I know that could be a very controversial thing for me to say. Not being punished, but being shown, hey, you screwed up. In your next life or here in the afterlife, let's do things differently. Here's what you could do differently. And here's how the actions you committed hurt those people. Because the soul is on that journey, you do not have the responsibility to forgive a soul if you don't feel comfortable with doing that. To love a soul with all your heart if you don't feel comfortable doing that. So that's number one. Number one that's the first thing I'm going to mention as something that would compel us to set a boundary with a psychic medium. And if that happens, if a psychic medium shares that with you, you're not obligated to tell them, hey, that's not okay because this person abused me or hurt me. You don't have to say anything. You just don't have to go back to them again. And I'm sorry if you've had that experience. I think a psychic medium who says something like that has a little more empathy to grow, if that's my personal opinion. And if you want to say something to a psychic medium who says that to you, that you should forgive this person who hurt you, I think you can say, I would empower you to say, take it or leave it, but I would empower you to say, I'm on a journey of healing and I'm not quite there yet. And I hope that this person's soul comes to a place of peace, but I'm also doing what I can to heal myself and take care of myself. And I think that soul would understand that, knowing what they had done to me. Let's go on to number 2. Another reason to set a boundary in a reading with a psychic or medium, or just something to be aware of. Insensitivity. I was in a group mediumship event online once. I think it was in January, maybe December, I forgot. And this woman definitely has the talent, the skill. She knows how to read people, I mean. And she said a few things. I'm thinking of one of those 2 things right now, and it just, it makes me cringe intensely inside. I'm gonna save that to be the second point I bring up in this insensitivity topic regarding this medium that I saw online. So it was a Zoom group reading event, kind of like what I did back in February with a few folks. And she's reading this one person, and she's sharing these what would be validating points, these symbols, signs, some parts of the soul's personality and life experience that would serve to validate this soul. And this sitter, the client, was saying, yeah, that's him. But then the medium brought something up that made the client think, oh, maybe it could be my brother who's living. I think it's some relative. Could be this person who's living, but I'm not sure. And then the medium says something else. The client then says, oh yeah, maybe it is him. And then the medium says, this is the part that I'm talking about. The medium says, but he's dead, right? No, he's dead, right? Girl, when I heard that, I was like, why are you saying it that way? There are certain facts of life, one of them being death and mortality. Yes, we all die. We all go to an afterlife. But I believe that in an afterlife, but let's put that aside for a second. We all die. Okay. There are some facts of life, when brought up in a mediumship reading or a psychic reading, that you just can't describe in really blunt ways. Because in a mediumship reading, the purpose of a mediumship reading for most of the times is to help someone heal regarding the passing of someone who has died. So if you're just here saying, but he's dead, right? No, but he's dead. 2 things. The way she said that comes from a place of, but I'm right? I'm correct? Aren't I correct? I'm correct, right? I'm correct? Ego. And not thinking of how the other person is receiving what she is saying. Number 2, it comes from a place of not really being emotionally intelligent. I hate to say it that way, but you are talking to somebody who wants to hear from a loved one, who more likely than not still feels sad about this loved one's passing. And for you to just say, he's dead, right? I find that very insensitive. And period. I don't think there's anything else I could say about that. And I do think that there are other circumstances, not just when talking about the state of being dead, the word dead. There are other things that I've heard people say in like mediumship circle. A mediumship circle, the one I go to, is meant to be a practice circle. So we're meant to we can make mistakes, but there is a certain level of skill that's needed in a psychic medium to know, like, sensitivity is a skill, and it requires that empathy. It requires that emotional intelligence. And what I was going to say is I have heard other insensitivities in readings. I can't think of anything based on my memory right now, but I can think of an example of something that could occur in a reading. So, oh, well, I almost forgot. I'm not laughing this off because I think it's funny. I'm just laughing at myself because I quickly forgot the second example I was going to share from this psychic medium and her event. She was channeling the soul of someone who died from alcoholism. It was a gentleman in spirit for a woman in the Zoom room. And she told this woman, well, he died the way he wanted to. He died enjoying his drink. This was after the client said, yes, he died from alcoholism. He was an alcoholic. In other words, he was an addict. He was addicted to alcohol, and he passed because of the choices he made related to his addiction. And you are here saying, oh, but he died the way he wanted to. He enjoyed his drink. What the fuck is wrong with you? Sorry, God forgive me, but... And yes, I will mark this episode explicit. If you're watching me on video, or you can hear it in my voice, it upsets me to this day so much, the memory of hearing her say that. And call me sappy, call me ridiculous, but I'm also tearing up because I'm so angry about it. Because how dare you tell somebody who lost someone to addiction that this person passed away happy because of the choice they made? Let's say, is not how I feel. I don't feel this way at all. Let's say that the human being who passed did pass away happy. Let's say that's the fact, okay? Let's say it's a fact. There is still room as a psychic medium for responsibility in sharing that information in a way that doesn't sound like, oh, he died because he was a happy addict. He died in his addiction and he was happy. That actually might have upset me way more that night in that Zoom event, than the he's dead, right? So upsetting. And I am not sure how that client felt in the room hearing that. And if a medium ever says things like this to you, number one, I keep saying number one, number two. First and foremost, you are a paying client. This is your reading. You need to let the medium do what they need to do and communicate with spirit the way they need to. You have to give them the space. Do not micromanage the reading. And if something is said like the insensitive things that the examples I just shared about for insensitivity, if things like that are said in a reading by your medium or psychic, I empower you to say, could you use a language that's a little more gentle, please? I'm very upset about this person's passing. And I understand that you're channeling spirit and you're channeling whatever comes through as it comes through, the way it comes through. But I'm on a healing journey. This all goes back to the client's healing journey. It's so important. I'm on a healing journey, and I would appreciate it if you use gentler language, because I really want to honor my mother, father, sibling, daughter, son who has passed. A medium who gets up in arms in response to you saying that, bye. I know I sound catty today, but it really upsets me. It really, really upsets me. And it upset me that night to hear those two things coming out of that medium's mouth. And she's still a talented medium. She does a good job. But I will never go to her events again. And she read me that night, and she was good. But because of the way she talked to those two clients, I will never want to see her again. I will never want to use her as a resource for developing my own mediumship, because that's not how I want to be as a medium. Number 3, the last thing I'm going to discuss in this podcast episode about a number 3 reason for setting a boundary with your psychic medium, or to be aware, something to be aware of. Codependence. Hey, client, let's be friends. Let me text you to see how your day is going. Let's go out for drinks. Let's go out to eat. Or, hey, come back and get a reading with me. We had a reading last week, but I think you could really use another one. You could use another reading next week. And maybe come to me once a week. I don't think there's anything wrong with someone being friends with their psychic medium only if there is a really long relationship of client to medium. I don't see myself becoming friends with any of my clients. I have been reading for just 3 years. But I'm also not ever going to make it a point to become friends with a client. It's different if, let's say, I've been reading a client for 10 years and they say, hey, I want to do a group reading at my birthday. And then I go do the group reading. I chat a bit with their friends, with the client themselves. I get to know them a little better. And then they want to invite me to, I don't know, some gala that their company is doing. And then maybe naturally a friendship is built. But even then, the relationship, the professional relationship would change because I have a harder time reading people I know very, very well. Especially, I have this one good friend who likes to get a reading from me every so often. And I've told her, we need to space out the time in between readings because I know you so well. And also, I'm using my energy and I don't want to be your psychic on tap, your psychic medium on tap, like a beer on tap. So that's where I've set some boundaries with a friend who wants to get readings from me. And I do readings for friends. I do. And I have to set those parameters. So if something goes from being a client-medium relationship, a professional relationship, to then a friendship, there would need to be a similar conversation of, hey, now that we're becoming closer, person to person, as human beings, as friends, the way I read you or the way we set up our sessions has to change because I know you so well now. So there's a difference between if I were to, let's say you, the listener, you have a reading with me next week, and I tell you after the reading an email, I think you're so cool, you were so lovely to talk to, let's get a drink sometime. Absolutely not. That's not okay in my book. There creates for me a conflict of interest because I am now making a professional relationship, very quickly making it into a personal social relationship. And when there is such a sensitivity within the work that I'm doing with you, let's say as a psychic, you're coming to me for a tarot reading because you have questions about things that mean a lot to you, things that are personal to you. As a medium in a mediumship reading, you're coming to me to talk with loved ones who have passed because you miss them, and missing them is part of that grieving process. Wherever you are in your grief journey, you're on a journey and you are dealing with grief. So for me to immediately try and make it into a social connection, a personal friendship, I find that very inappropriate. So if a psychic or a medium immediately wants to be friends with you, I would say something to the effect of, hey, I appreciate how kind you're being to me. I would like to keep this professional. I would like to continue seeing you as a psychic or medium, whatever they may be. And Leave it at that. And again, if they respond poorly to that or negatively to that, strongly to that, may not be the healthiest professional relationship with a medium or a psychic. Again, that's my opinion. Disclaimer, it's all my opinion. Now, the second thing I mentioned as part of this codependence topic is come back for readings, come back for readings, come back for readings. I tell a lot of my clients at the end of my readings that my goal is not for you to come back over and over to use me as a telephone to God, as a telephone to your loved ones. I'm here to empower you in a tarot reading, let's say, for you to use your own intuition, because I'm only able to read for you with these cards because I'm tapping into your energy. Your energy is always with you. So now we're just unveiling that for you. Go and use your intuition. I'm only able to channel your loved ones in a mediumship reading because they are already with you. You bring them with you. They're not here in a waiting room with me. They're with you. So I'm reminding you, and Spirit is reminding you through this reading, that you have the power to connect with them. It may feel different. And that's why it's okay to go see a medium 2-3 times a year, let's say max. I think that's a good healthy number, 2-3 times a year. It's okay to do that. But if any psychic or medium tries to push onto you to continue to come seeing them, there are some psychics and mediums who I think will say that, but then will disclaim it with something like let's say I were to tell you, if I were also a Reiki healer, which I'm not yet. I don't know if I will be one day. We'll see. Let's say I'm a medium and a Reiki healer. You have a mediumship reading with me and we channel your loved ones. It's a great reading. And then I say to you, I feel like you could really use a Reiki session. I also offer Reiki. If you're ever interested, let me know, but book that when you're ready or approach me when you're ready. That's very different than saying, so I feel like after this mediumship reading, which was wonderful, I feel like you could really use some energy healing. I'm sensing some dark energy around you, and I think you could really use a Reiki session. So why don't you book a session with me next week? That's uncomfortable, y'all. That's not very cool. Because if I were to use the element of fear to have someone to book a reading with me, like the only reason to pressure someone, or I believe the only way to pressure somebody to book a reading so soon, again, the only way to do that is by tapping into some kind of fear tactic or make them feel, convincing the person that their current state of being is uncomfortable for them or is not good for them. And I think as psychics and mediums, we shouldn't be in the business of using fear to convince people. Going back to the example I just shared of a more positive spin on this tactic, or not tactic, but like if I really feel someone could use a Reiki energy healing session because I want them to get better, I will say that to them, but not in a way that says, if you don't, you're screwed. Nah, that's not okay. Because maybe I'm not the right Reiki healer. Maybe they can find somebody else. Maybe they don't need Reiki at all. Maybe they'll be fine without Reiki. It's just a suggestion that I'm making. So if a psychic medium or a psychic approaches you with that energy of come back, come back, come back, you can tell them, I'd rather space out the time between my readings because I want to actually apply what you told me in our last reading. And if they keep insisting for you to come back, come back, come back, I would walk the other direction. Because this is something you don't have to think about as a client, but I'm going to say it. If I want you to come back, come back, come back, what's driving me to say that to you is fear. And what is that fear tied to? It's the fear of me not making money. That's what I think it boils down to. Now, we have to make money as psychic mediums. We need to earn a living if we do it full time, which I don't, not yet. We need to earn a living. And the energy we put out there and the time we put out there for these readings, sure, we can do them for free, and there are people who do them for free, but I don't think there's anything wrong with charging for these readings. because we are expending our energy and we're using our time for strangers. So while we need to make a living, we should not be using our money problems, if we have money problems, as a reason for you to keep coming back to see us to get a reading. Because then we're not approaching your reading with the right energy. That's not something you ever have to tell a medium. If a medium tells you come back, I would not recommend saying, listen, your money problems are not my issues. I mean, you could say it, but you don't want to escalate anything. Just set your boundary. Say you want to space out the readings. If they're not all about that, then you don't have to answer their email again. You don't have to answer their text again or receive their phone call again. So just to quickly recap, what we went over in this episode, the 3 things that could inspire you to set boundaries with a psychic or medium, and or things to be aware of for setting boundaries: forcing forgiveness or love for someone who's passed, insensitivity and how the psychic or medium communicates what's coming through from spirit, and codependence, an unhealthy attachment that a psychic or medium may have with you or may want you to have with them. It's important to set these boundaries. And going back to what I said, I think when we were talking about number 2, insensitivity, you are the paying client. These readings are for you. And you should not try to run a reading. Even though it is for you and you've paid for it, you need to let the person, the medium, the psychic, do the reading for you. Where you absolutely should advocate for yourself is how the psychic or medium makes you feel as they're sharing your reading with you. Are they bringing you down? Are they making you feel less than? Are they making you feel crappy? Are they making you feel like a bad person? That's not what the goal of a reading should be. Even if a bad person, whatever that means to anybody, a bad person steps into a reading with me, if they're open, my goal is that I hope that something that comes through in the reading changes their heart. Not for me to just, if I'm there to just make a bad person tell them that they are bad, what does that do? The goal is to change hearts and to help people heal. And you deserve to heal. We all deserve to heal. We all deserve to evolve in the way that we want to towards being the best version of ourselves that we want to be. And these 3 things, the forcing love and forgiveness, insensitivity, unhealthy attachment, codependence, these are not things that are conducive to healing journeys. And they're not things that are, a lot of them these things come from ego. They come from ego and from a self-centeredness on the behalf of the psychic or medium. What are your thoughts on this? I'm curious to hear what you think. Just put it in the comments of the Instagram post for this episode, of the YouTube video. And I think that's all we have for today. And like I said before, I'm hoping and expecting for my episodes' release dates to be way more consistent like they have been before. So here we go. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you soon. If you have a question or topic you want me to cover on Third Eyesight, head to my website, juanfranciscospirit.com/contact, and send a message my way. If you really enjoyed this episode, leave a review wherever you listen. I'd really appreciate it.